Hello and welcome. This is the Angel Clark Show. You're listening live at LRN.FM. And no, I am not Angel Clark. I am Derek J. And you can learn about me at my website, derekj.me. I'll be hosting the next 2 episodes of the Angel Clark Show, and it's truly an honor to do so. It's very good to be with you, the listeners who have been listening for these many years to this show, dedicated every weekday on LRN.FM for, I think, 2 years now, or maybe even more. I have a bittersweet announcement to make. It gives me no pleasure to make this announcement. However, it must be done. I've just been informed that these next 2 episodes will be the last of the daily weekday episodes before the Angel Clark Show moves to a 1-day-a-week format. It will soon be airing as of next week on Wednesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern on the Liberty Radio Network. And that's that. So you can catch Angel Clark's show at radiofreedom.us. Also visit her website, noarmycanstopinidea.com. And I want to let you know before we go forward that this segment of the Angel Clark Show has been brought to you by a friend of the Angel Clark Show. Yes, that's right. A friend of the Angel Clark Show has responded to the call and is doing what they can to help promote liberty through our listeners. You can do the same. All you have to do is go to the website, radiofreedom.us. Once you're there, I want you to scroll down and you will find a chat room. There you can interact with some of the other people listening to the show, and you'll also find a tab that says donate. Click on that tab and you'll see that the Angel Clark Show accepts both PayPal and Bitcoin. Every donation helps. Thanks so much. So let's get into it. What news stories do we have to share with you today? Well, Facebook is apologizing to drag queens over their name policy. It's about time. And Hong Kong leaders won't bend to protesters' demands. You may have heard that there's a democracy protest going on in Hong Kong. We've got the latest on that, plus 10 things to watch for in the ISIS war. There's a new war coming, and we need to know what it's going to be like. What can we learn from the recent past going forward with Obama's new war? Plus, Ghost Gunner from Cody Wilson allows home mining of lower receivers. You know, like making your own rifle at home with a 3D printer. Pretty amazing. Plus, moms are fed up with school stranger danger paranoia. Yep. That's it's about time. You know, the tide is starting to turn, I think, and it's turning towards freedom. So we've got those stories and more. Plus, as is per usual, when I host the Angel Clark Show, I'll take your calls. You can call in on the Peace News Now Hi-Fi Civ Dis line. That number is 443-424-8347. I welcome your calls. You can also send a Skype contact request to Derek J. Freeman, and I'll accept it and put you on the air. But without further ado, let's get to this story from the Associated Press about why Facebook is apologizing to drag queens. This story from Barbara Ortute. She writes from New York, Facebook is apologizing to drag queens and the transgender community for deleting accounts that use drag names like Lil Miss Hot Mess rather than legal names such as Bob Smith. The world's biggest online social network caught heat recently when it deleted several hundred accounts belonging to self-described drag queens, other performers, and members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. Facebook has long required its users to go by their real names on the site for security purposes, to stand out from other social networks, and so it can better target advertising to people. Now, the company says, in the spirit of its policy, it doesn't mean a person's legal name, but the authentic name they use in real life. For Sister Roma, that's Sister Roma. For Lil Miss Hot Mess, that's Lil Miss Hot Mess. Though the real names policy isn't changing, the way Facebook enforces it might. Last month, the company suggested that performers, such as drag queens, have other ways of maintaining their stage identities on the site, such as creating pages that are meant for businesses and public figures. But a fan page is not the same as a regular Facebook account, and users weren't happy with the suggestion. While standing by the names policy on Wednesday, Cox said, and who's Cox? Cox is Chris Cox, that's Facebook's vice president. He says, "We see through this event that there's lots of room for improvement in the reporting and enforcement mechanisms, tools for understanding who's real and who's not, and the customer service for anyone who's affected." The Transgender Law Center, a San Francisco-based transgender rights advocacy group that met with Facebook over the issue on Wednesday, said it is, quote, excited to work in good faith with Facebook to address all the concerns raised in today's meeting. Quote, "What was made clear today is that Facebook is ready to collaborate with our communities and shares our values of making sure everyone is able to safely be their authentic self online," the group said in an emailed statement. Cox also shed some light on why so many accounts with drag names and other stage names suddenly started getting deleted. Quote, "An individual on Facebook decided to report several hundred of these accounts as fake, he wrote. These reports were among the several 100,000 fake name reports we process every single week, 99% of which are bad actors doing bad things: impersonation, bullying, trolling, domestic violence, scams, hate speech, and more. So we didn't notice the pattern. Seems legit." Facebook has its own blog post on the issue, which you can read over at facebook.com/chris.cox. That's the official vice president's page, and he has a rather long statement. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but you get the gist. Facebook is saying, all right, we give. We're not going to stick by our strict names policy. You don't have to send in your birth certificate or your driver's license. If you are Lil Miss Hot Mess, you can go by that on Facebook. Why not? You know, what's the trouble? And a lot of the drag queens, this isn't brought up in the article, but a lot of the drag queens have a fear that if they go public with their persona, they may be fired from their jobs. I mean, you could imagine Bob Smith being searched at work, and then, oh my God, look what Bob is wearing off of work hours. Maybe in some states, you might think, if you live in a progressive place, that, well, what's the big deal? But in places like Pennsylvania, it is still legal for employers to fire employees for the reason that they are gay. That is still totally okay in places like Pennsylvania, and I'm sure there are like 30 others across the U.S. It's pretty shocking that that's still a legit excuse by law, but that's the case. And so these drag queens, they need protection. And Sister Roma, she's a pretty famous drag queen, so I'm surprised that she didn't get the instant recognition from Facebook's vice president, but looks like they're bending. Looks like they're going to go towards more freedom on this issue. So maybe you go by a drag name, or maybe you have a public persona. I certainly use one. I use Derek J. Freeman on Facebook instead of my legal last name. Now, Freeman is close enough to a normal last name that people don't raise any issues over it. But I suppose they could flag me over it, and then I would have to somehow prove that this is my name. I might have to even get a name change. When we come back, I want to hear about why the Hong Kong leader won't bend to protesters. Who is he? Why do these people want democracy in the first place? Joanna Chu and Wendy Tang have the story from the Associated Press. Here's a teaser. Hong Kong's embattled leader refused demands by pro-democracy protesters to resign Thursday, and instead offered talks to defuse a week of massive demonstrations that have grown into the biggest challenge for Beijing's authority since China took control of the former British colony in 1997. Well, this could be big. We've got video plus a whole new story to share with you about what these protesters are doing. Can we talk them out of the democracy thing? Because that's like two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. This is the Angel Clark Show.
A great new book is hard to find, with today's authors glorifying the state. I have an alternative, and his name is Taryn Lupo at lupolit.com. Taryn has written over 20 Liberty-themed short stories, manuals, and books, ranging from nonfiction, humor, horror, and romance to young adult and children's fiction. Read the words that reflect your views. Read Taryn Lupo at lupolit.com. A traveler? Well, check out Taryn's free audiobooks, perfect for your lifestyle. Stop supporting authors that support the state. Instead, support lupolit.com.
It's the Onion Radio News. Teen sex is linked to alcohol and drugs by the Center for Figuring Out Really Obvious Things. This is Doyle Redland reporting. An exhaustive 4-year, $23 million study of substance abuse and sexual habits of more than 2,500 American teens has confirmed that young people between the ages of 13 and 18 who drink and or use drugs are more likely to be sexually active. Dr. Gerald Eckersley is director of the Boston-based organization.
We found that this phenomenon also occurs among adults as well as every population everywhere in the world that has ever existed since the dawn of time.
The center has sent a teleprompter-ready press release of its findings to more than 400 local TV news affiliates across the U.S., along with stock video footage of beer displays and teens smoking and drinking at parties. Doyle Redland for the Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
If you can't listen to the Liberty Radio Network's internet streams, free satellite channel, or radio affiliates, no worries. You can listen to LRN.FM from any phone, anywhere. Add this number to your phone, 213-493-0309. It's a long-distance call, so make sure you're familiar with your phone's calling plan. The Liberty Radio Network listen line, stream 24 hours a day. Call 213-493-0309. That's 213-493-0309.
Are you a political activist who does things that the government might not like? Then this free ebook may save your life. Rats is your guide to protecting yourself against snitches, informers, informants, agents provocateur, narcs, finks, and similar vermin. Rats was written by OG libertarian Claire Wolfe. Rats is a short book, easy to read, and available free in many formats. Download Rats free at rats-nosnitch.com. That's rats-nosnitch.com.
DVD, books, music, instruments, periodicals, computers, software, electronics, photo, cell phone, office products, home and garden, bed and bath, furniture, kitchen, pet supplies, automotive, hardware, apparel, shoes, jewelry, grocery, healthcare, sports and outdoors, toys, games, used, and more. It's a department store at your fingertips. Shop.lrn.fm. Get all your shopping done, get a great deal, and a portion of your purchase goes to benefit the Liberty Radio Network when you shop at Amazon via shop.lrn.fm. What if the key to achieving liberty in your lifetime was to move together with others who think like you? Liberty activists are joining the Free State Project, which is over 70% of the way to its goal of 20,000 participants. And they're already making the move to New Hampshire. The successes are piling up and are proving the Free State Project is a real movement and no longer just a great idea. When you're planning your move, consider Keene. Keene is famous for its civil disobedience and non-cooperation, and there's plenty of political opportunity as well. From demonstrations and vigils to outreach and volunteering, there's a lot going on in Keene. Keene is the liberty media capital of the world, with television, talk radio, and more, all originating here. Though it's more than just activism, with regular social events each week. See what's happening at freekeene.com and get connected with video, audio, free books, a forum, and activist tools you can download and use in your area at freekeene.com. That's freekeene.com.
If you enjoy LRN.FM, please contribute to your favorite shows via their websites and become an amplifier at amp.lrn.fm. That's amp.lrn.fm.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek Shea
on the Angel Clark Show.
What's up, world? How are you doing today? I'm doing just great. It's a beautiful day here in Keene, New Hampshire, from whence I broadcast. The leaves are changing color. It's cool. It's crisp. It's starting to become sweater weather. Oh boy, I love that. Light jackets and layers. All sorts of earth tones. Ooh, I'm so excited for the clothes, for the colors, for the Halloween party. Ooh, if you're coming to Keene, don't forget Keenvention is this October 31st to November 2nd. I'll be there, and all the cool people will be there. It's an activism-centric event that happens in Keene, New Hampshire, the Liberty media capital of the world. It's also the place where some of the most hardcore activism takes place as part of the Free State Project, people who have moved to New Hampshire for more freedom. They do some civil disobedience and some pretty badass activism here. So I'm very excited about Keenvention. Should be coming up, and I'm hosting a Halloween party. Ooh, so it's going to be really fun. Some music, dancing, food, and fun. So I'm thrilled. Come on down, get your tickets, keenvention.info, only $60 for the whole weekend. It's a pretty cheap convention as far as conventions go, so I look forward to seeing you there. Let's turn back to this story about Hong Kong protesters, talking about a search for freedom. Well, people in Hong Kong are working on it. I told you that Hong Kong's embattled leader refused demands by pro-democracy protesters to resign Thursday, and instead offered talks to defuse a week of massive demonstrations that have grown into the biggest challenge to Beijing's authority since China took control of the former British colony in 1997. Now, the Hong Kong Federation of Students said that in a statement early Friday that they planned to join the talks with the government, focused specifically on political reforms. They reiterated that Chief Executive Lang Cheng-ying stepped down, saying he, quote, had lost his integrity. A wider pro-democracy group that joined the demonstrations, Occupy Central, welcomed the talks and also insisted that Lang quit. Occupy Central hopes the talks can provide a turning point in the current political stalemate, it said in a statement. However, we iterate our view that Chief Executive Lang Cheng-ying is responsible for the stalemate, and he must step down. Ling's comments came at a news conference held just minutes before the protesters' midnight deadline for him to quit. I will not resign, he said. The students had threatened to surround or occupy government buildings if Lang did not step down, and the police had warned of serious consequences if the protesters carried out that threat. Standing beside Lang was the territory's top civil servant, Chief Secretary Carrie Lam, and he asked her to arrange the talks. She said she would seek to meet with leaders of the demonstrations as soon as possible. Quote, I hope both sides can be satisfied, she said. Students had wanted a public meeting, but I hope that we can have some flexibility to discuss details. Why wouldn't she want a public meeting? Yeah. Something to hide? The protesters want Beijing to reverse its decision that all candidates in an inaugural 2017 election for chief executive must be approved by a committee of mostly pro-Beijing elites. They say China is reneging on its promise that the city's top leader will be chosen through, quote, universal suffrage. Ling said the authorities would continue to tolerate the protests as long as the participants did not charge police lines, but urged them to stop their occupation of much of the downtown area. Quote, I urge students not to charge into or occupy government buildings. It's not about my personal inconvenience, he said. These few days, the protesters' occupation of key areas of the city has already seriously affected Hong Kong's economy, people's daily lives, and government functioning. Before Lang spoke, the heads of two major universities whose students joined in launching the protests appeared before a jittery crowd in front of the entrance to his office and appealed for calm. Early Thursday, police were seen bringing in supplies of tear gas and other riot gear, and the protesters prepared face masks and goggles as tension rose in the standoffs outside the imposing government compound near the waterfront. After Lang's news conference, however, the atmosphere was palpably calmer, although many protesters expressed disappointment about the proposed talks. Quote, they didn't mention anything about when they are going to talk. No details. Nothing, said Joanna Wong, age 28, who works in the aviation industry. Wong said she would stay at the protest site, to see how the student groups react to the announcement. Marketing professional Hyman Chan, age 25, said talks should begin right away. If we need to wait 2 or 3 days, the crowd will become smaller and there will be fewer people to support this movement, she said. That's why the government just keeps us waiting. The People's Daily, published by China's ruling Communist Party, warned in a commentary Thursday of chaos in the city of 7 million and expressed strong support for Lang. It said the central government firmly backed the Hong Kong police, who were criticized for using tear gas against protesters last weekend. Quote, to handle illegal activities in accordance with the law. Ivy Chan, a 25-year-old social worker, said she hoped the proposed talks would yield results and that the tear gas wouldn't be used again. Quote, what we want to fight for is our freedom and the free nomination of candidates for our chief executive, she said. Now, this is not a victory in my mind if she even gets what she wants. Oh, a free election of candidates. Great. So you can have more masters to choose from. But you don't say we want no master. That's the point where I would like humanity to get to, where everyone is on the same page with saying, I am the master of my own life. I need not another human master who lords over me without my consent. Of course, you can have your own masters if you choose them. No problem with that. We have idols, we have mentors, we have all kinds of leaders in our lives, but they're chosen leaders. They're voluntary authorities. The problem is when you have a leader who imposes himself on the people without their consent. And that's exactly what's happening in China today. That's why there are protests and police saying, yeah, you know, we have no problem with you protesting, just don't cross our line. That's not freedom. And freedom to choose another master is not freedom. I believe it was Lysander Spooner who said something like, the freedom to choose a new master every 4 years doesn't make you any less of a slave. This is the Angel Clark Show. We will return with a story about 10 things to watch for in the new ISIS war. Did you know that Syria is being bombed by the U.S. military? Happened last week. We've got the scoop. This is the Angel Clark Show.
Did you agree? Did you totally agree? I'll bet that you did. But did you read the agreement? There are 7 billion people on Earth, and there are over 6 billion active cell phone accounts right now. And every one of them came with an agreement. Billions have already agreed to allow entities that they do not know to use and abuse every feature of their mobile devices. Your computer activity is monitored and archived. Your car is tracked, and even your face is scanned. The current power structure grows more fearful every day of your desire for anonymity, independence, free association, freedom of movement, freedom of expression, and your freedom of thought. And entire categories of humans will be targeted. And if they, them, those that won't leave us alone determine that we are not within their control, then we will be categorized as out of control. FreedomsPhoenix.com will launch the next phase of the Levolution by the end of the summer of 2014. And if you have to tell your neighbors about it, then we did it wrong.
If you want to move to the free state and you're looking for some real estate, well, I know a guy who's really great. It's the realtor Mark Warden. Do you want a home with 20 acres, a lakeside cabin, any takers for renters, buyers, and sellers too? Mark Warden is the guy for you. PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that aims back.
The government has no more right to tell us what to put in our bodies than they have to take our guns or tell us what books we can read.
6 drug police were eaten by bears while raiding a marijuana farm.
On your knees, you dirty hippie! On your knees! What's the problem, officer?
Today, many cops who enforce pot laws do so only because it provides them with cushy jobs, good benefits, and a chance to push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you got to keep you and your gat intact.
Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. A film by Michael W. Dean and Nima Vadati.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
Did you know that you can listen to LRN.FM 24/7 via our free-to-air satellite channel? From Mexico to Canada, our signal covers nearly all of North America. All you need is a view of the southern sky, an affordable receiver, and a dish as small as 30 inches. There are no monthly fees. Learn more at sat.lrn.fm. Plus, if you're a broadcaster or want to be one, this is a good delivery method for our content. See our coverage map and get details at sat.lrn.fm. That's sat.lrn.fm.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, add yourself to the Shire map at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
You can watch the LRN Studio Cam and chat with other listeners anytime at cam.lrn.fm. That's cam.lrn.fm.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek Shea on the Angel Clark Show. Hello? I wish I was a little bit taller.
Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show. Let's get right back into it. Hey, did you know there's a 3D printable gun? No, not the Liberator. This one's a rifle, lower receiver. We'll have that story for you shortly. But first, this is much more pressing. 10 things to watch for in the new war against ISIS. This is a guide to the spin, empty gestures, and behind-the-scenes players that will determine the fate of America's re-entry into Iraq. An article by Peter Van Buren at the American Conservative, printed yesterday. Obama's new war in Iraq and Syria will fail. Why? As events tumble forward in Iraq, here are 10 things to keep an eye on that will tell the tale. 1. Inclusive government, inclusive in air quotes. A cornerstone of any longer-term resolution in Iraq is the formation of an inclusive government, one that addresses the needs of Sunnis, Shia, and Kurds, gives each a sense of substantive participation, equitably shares oil revenues, creates safety for each, and allows future decision-making to take place while assuring the Shias do not slink back into dominance. Since the new prime minister, ostensibly handmaiden to the U.S. and approved by Iran, is a Shia and former colleague of Maliki and the member of the same political party, inclusiveness falls to appointments to key ministries and the delegation of real powers to those ministers. The ministries to watch are Defense and Interior. Both ministries have been used as tools of repression against the Sunnis since at least 2006. A key Sunni in one or both is good. A for show Sunni is bad. It's highly unlikely the U.S. will allow two Shias to be chosen, but leaving the posts empty, as they are now, is nearly as bad. Prime Minister Abadi remains acting minister for the Ministries of Defense and Interior, as did Malachi before him, since his parliament has failed to approve candidates for either post. Number 2, foreshow Sunnis. Of the many mistakes the U.S. made during the occupation, one was the empowerment of Sunnis who were simply carpetbaggers out for a buck, or $1 million, or just lesser leaders hoping to move up with U.S. help. This undetermined broader support, as the Sunni people knew who the fakes were, this undermined broader support as the Sunni people knew who the fakes were, even if the Americans didn't. Information on individual Sunnis who came to some power will be hard to find, but look for it, as it will make clear whether such men will add to or help mask the truth about inclusiveness. Number 3, gestures. Most gestures are just that, empty statements. Any real progress in Iraq requires concrete, substantive action by the Shia government. They have a lot of distrust to overcome among their Sunni and Kurd populations. Simple statements, however trumpeted by the U.S. as a sign of progress, typically framed as, "you have to walk before you run," are likely just propaganda. A trick employed by the Iraqi government during the occupation was to announce one thing in English to the Western media and say nothing, or say something quite different, in their own media. If possible, check news sources with Arabic speakers on the ground. There are some recommendations at the American Conservative of various Twitter addresses, and you can learn more about those Arabic-speaking news reporters who are on the ground in Iraq. Allowing former Sunni Vice President Tariq al-Hashimi, who remains in exile under a Malachi-issued death warrant, to return would be a big deal. But it's an unlikely gesture. A huge deal? Give him a place in the new government. He's no angel, but it will get the Sunnis' attention. Number 4, war making. Any signs that Shia militia are being reined in off the battlefield are good. Examples of them targeting Sunnis in Baghdad or elsewhere are bad. Examples of whatever remains of the Iraqi military proper really fighting with Peshmerga as opposed to fighting nearby with the Americans make everyone play nice together are good. Sunni units fighting in one place, Shia in another, and Kurds in a third are bad signs. Any force called a National Guard is just a rebranded militia. Don't be fooled by showcase episodes, such as when CNN just happens to be embedded just as a Shia unit helps out a Kurdish unit. Of course, when ISIS overruns an Iraqi army base near Baghdad and executes 300 government troops as they did recently, and U.S. air power is somehow unable to intervene, that's a bad turn. Same for reported ISIS bombings inside Baghdad city. Watch for claims of victory carefully. Many small towns will change hands, especially if ISIS follows Insurgency 101 tactics of just temporarily melting away when faced with bad odds. Until the Iraqi government actually controls Mosul, and especially Fallujah, there is still a long way to go in this struggle. Number 5, you guessed it, U.S. bombing. More U.S. successes closer and closer to Baghdad are bad, especially south of the sea where Sunni Shia still seem to exist. How the inevitable collateral damage and or bombing mistake that takes out a school or a hospital is handled will be very important. The Shia government has to keep wary population at least neutral towards the Americans. There's a large group of people inside Iraq who believe ISIS is a CIA creation designed to create casus belli, or a reason for war, for American forces to re-enter Iraq. That's interesting. Large groups of people inside Iraq believe ISIS is a CIA creation designed to create a cause for war for the American forces to re-enter Iraq. More war porn video of smart bombs snuffing ISIS Toyotas or individual mortars is bad, signaling that there is little to blow up that makes any difference. More U.S. aircrafts is being used inside Iraq is a bad sign that the U.S. may get those permanent bases it always wanted, and likely has little to do with the conflict's successful resolution per se. It also will only add to Iraqi mistrust of America's intentions. Another bad sign, basing an American aircraft in country, as is happening now near Erbil inside Baghdad International Airport with a small number of helicopters. This means a long tail. That tail includes U.S. maintenance and armorers on the ground, staffed to feed and protect them, the shipments of bombs and spare parts. Every person and plane becomes a vulnerable target that can expand the conflict overnight. Imagine a service member beheaded on video. Yep, it's that slippery slope again. Number 6, that coalition. If the U.S. insists on any of its Arab partners doing any bombing outside western Iraq near Syria, it will be bad news. No one in Iraq wants Arab forces loose inside the country. The Shia government would be especially troubled given how much of the location comes from Sunni nations. It's unlikely even the U.S. is clumsy enough to push for this, but you never know. Next, we got to keep an eye on Turkey. We've got the scoop on Turkey, Iran part 1, 2, and 3 coming up on The Angel Clark Show.
It started in 1913, and it's become a monster. We're on to you. SecretsOfTheFed.com. Discover what's really going on with over 100 daily updates and hourly trending news articles, podcasts, forums, and the newest memes. It's your premier liberty-oriented destination. Don't waste hours sorting through disinformation on the web. SecretsOfTheFed.com.
The Diary of Henry Myers tells the story of the collapse of a tyrannical dystopian empire named Soko from the point of view of a reluctant hero, Henry Myers. The book is written in diary form at the fall of the tyrannical empire, with flashbacks to before the war that led to the collapse, and has been described as an interesting tale about our world as it is today that the reader almost forgets things aren't quite this bad yet. The Diary of Henry Myers is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com.
Here's a chance to do a little activism while you're cruising Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. Between the LOL cats, the recipes, the hot girls, and the inspirational sunrise memes, Free Talk Live's posts pass by your newsfeed. Like them, comment. It gives us more exposure. If you don't see our posts, click like at facebook.freetalklive.com and then hover over it to click Get Notifications. It's an easy way to spread the ideas of liberty a bit further. I know you're busy, but you can spare that 1/10 of a calorie it takes to click on something. facebook.freetalklive.com.
Liberty activists around the country are starting to realize politics alone won't set us free. So what will? At Liberty on the Rocks, we believe the answer starts with living your principles, spreading ideas, and connecting with those around you. By starting a Liberty on the Rocks network, you can make a difference by uniting libertarian thinkers. Find out how much fun it is to build your local network from the ground up. Visit libertyontherocks.org today to get started.
Now that you've found the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM, you may want to help expose others to our great programs. To assist you in doing so, you'll find resources at promote.lrn.fm, including details on how to get a free bumper sticker, quarter-page flyers you can print out and distribute, banners for your website, as well as files that will allow you to make your own custom banners and graphics. Visit promote.lrn.fm and help bring new listeners to the Liberty Radio Network. That's promote.lrn.fm.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
You're listening to the best liberty-oriented audio streamed around the clock, on the air, and online. This is the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek J.
on the Angel Clark Show.
Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show. Hey, we're talking about 10 things to watch for in the new ISIS war. Peter Van Buren writes at theamericanconservative.com, 10 things to look for. We've already gone through 1 through 6. We've got inclusive government. That's in air quotes. Not a really inclusive government, just one that is all divided and split. That would be bad. For show, Sunnis, fake Sunnis in positions of power. Number 3, gestures, just empty statements made by governments, maybe saying one thing to the American media and then saying something different to the Middle East. Number 4, war making, bombs and boots on the ground from the U.S. Number 5, U.S. bombing. Number 6, that coalition of Arab partners, you know, who's always getting involved, the cast of usual suspects, Saudi Arabia and the like. Number 7 is where we're at now. Keep an eye on Turkey. Turkey is number 7. They are shaping up to really get the fuzzy end of the lollipop because of U.S. efforts. The Turks fear a powerful Kurdish entity on the disputed border with Kurdistan and Iraq and fear internal strife from its own restive Kurdish population. They are wary of U.S. efforts to further arm and empower Kurds and move them deeper into Syria as proxy boots on the ground. That would put the Kurds on 2 Turkish borders. The Turks are also bearing the brunt of the pumped-up refugee crisis the U.S. is creating by bombing Syria. Anything the U.S. does to alleviate Turkish concerns is good. Anything else is bad. Number 8, Iran, part 1. Iran, of course, is the place where all the lines intersect in Iraq, as well as in Syria and throughout the Middle East. Watch everything Iran says or does. American influence over Baghdad is mostly bought with aid money. The Kurds also have more needs, primarily U.S. protection and quiet assurances of their de facto autonomous status vis-a-vis Baghdad. However, the foreign power with the most influence over the Iraqi government is Iran. The prime minister and his party have deep ties to Iran and won't make a significant move without at least tacit approval from Tehran. Iran has funded and retains connections with many Shia militias and can reel them in or push them out into the war. As a tip of the hat to Iran, which supports Assad in Syria, Iraqi Prime Minister Abadi spoke in only lightly coded terms of his support for Assad. Quote, "As a neighbor, I don't want to be party to the disintegration of Syria or have diminished sovereignty of Syria." So watch Iran. Here's number 9, Iran Part 2. While the U.S. and Iran are ostensibly on the same side fighting ISIS, their goals are very, very different. The U.S. seeks some sort of unity government in Iraq and to maintain American influence, while Iran seeks to support a powerful Shia government and maintain Iranian influence. The American-Iranian cooperation will eventually, inevitably, come into conflict. Iran is also using Iraq for its broader goals in the region. As an example of just how messed up things can get, Iran and the U.S. are sharing the same Iraqi airspace. However, Iran is using it to fly weapons to Syria's Assad, while the U.S. is using the airspace to bomb rebels in Syria opposed to Assad. This is much more than another case of politics making strange bedfellows. It's an indicator of Obama's near total short-term thinking. That is quite an amazing statement, that Iran and the U.S. are sharing Iraq's airspace. One, Iran is using it to send weapons and supplies to Syria's Assad, and the U.S. is using that airspace to go over to Syria and bomb them. Same airspace. They're friends for now. Inevitably, there will be a conflict. Number 10, Iran Part 3. Iran has overtly committed those elusive boots on the ground to the struggle. Iran has the power that did not leave Iraq. Iran, as the power that did not leave Iraq, has credibility on the ground with the Shia and scares the sweat out of Sunnis and Kurds, who know the U.S. will again depart someday, while the Iranians will share at least a border with them forever. While there's no doubt the U.S. and Iran are speaking via some back channel, overt discussions would be a very good sign. A bad sign would be pop-ups over anger over the nuclear issue. The U.S. may, for domestic political reasons, foolishly try and separate the issues of Iran-Iraq and Iran nukes. But inside Iran, there's no such divide. Both are part of the uber issue of U.S.-Iran relations. What Iran does will affect the struggle in Iraq as much as any other single factor. It's likely to be a key point of failure in the Obama plan. Watch for it. Amazing article that really breaks it down in a concise way. 10 bullet points. What to look for in the new ISIS war. Just to recap, inclusive government, for show Sunnis, gestures, war making, U.S. bombing, that coalition of typical Arab partners, Turkey, Iran, and Iran. These are the things to watch. And I will be watching them, along as I know Angel Clark will as well. You can follow the ongoing ISIS war at peacenewsnow.com. Got news reports coming out at least twice a week about what's going on in the Middle East and the new U.S. bombing campaign of Syria. Now let's turn to more international news, where civil unrest is boiling up in Catalonia. This story from Russia Today, reposted to LouRockwell.com. Police clashed with thousands of Catalan demonstrators as they hit the streets of Barcelona and Madrid on Tuesday, outraged at the Spanish Constitutional Court's decision to suspend Catalonia's November vote for independence. You may remember, if this was reported on the Angel Clark Show, I know I reported it on Peace News Now, that November 9th was supposed to be the day of referendum in Catalonia. Now it seems that's changed this week on Tuesday. The independence referendum planned by Catalonia's president for November was unanimously suspended by 12 judges of the Spanish Constitutional Court on Monday. Angered by the decision, protesters took to the streets of Barcelona and several other cities, promising they are ready to begin, quote, the most powerful political campaign in European history, in case the referendum is not held, according to RIA Novista, citing protest organizers. Despite rainy weather, crowds of demonstrators with colorful umbrellas and slogans, some dressed in the colors of the regional flag and holding banners demanding the right to vote for independence, flooded Barcelona's center. We will vote! And we want to vote! The people chanted. Groups of demonstrators also took directly to Spanish government buildings in Barcelona and to the Spanish parliament in Madrid with chalkboard cutouts of ballot boxes symbolizing the defiant drive of Catalonia's independence supporters to hold the November 9th referendum. In Barcelona, the protesters were dispersed by police for blocking the pavement, with brief clashes ensuing. Despite Madrid's position that there is no way the government will allow the country to be split, Catalans remain adamant that they should be given a chance to vote. In response to Monday's decision, the Speaker of the regional parliament called for the Constitutional Court to immediately lift the suspension of the referendum. Catalan separatist politicians also did not give up hope of a referendum. Why do they put so much hope into a vote? If you want to be free, if you want to be independent, that's up to you. It's a personal choice. It's not something that your masters on high can just give you. You have to take freedom for yourself. This is the Angel Clark Show.
Keenvention is coming up October 31st through November 2nd. Get your tickets now at keenvention.info. Keenvention is your chance to meet dozens of key liberty activists from across the Shire. You can explore the beautiful little city of Keene, discuss various forms of activism with seasoned veterans, attend social events like the costume party. Keenvention received rave reviews last year. If you missed it, visit keenvention.info for full video coverage of every speaker and panel. This year, James Robin Hood Cleveland, Rich Paul, and Free State Project President Carla Garrick will be keynoting. And we'll have all kinds of panels, including the new Cop Block panel and the new Movers panel hosted by the outlaw Josie Wales. Join old and new friends and neighbors in Keene for Keenvention this October 31st through November 2nd. Only 100 tickets are available in advance, so lock yours in now for just $60 or with Bitcoin. Reserve your tickets now at keenvention.info. Visit keenvention.info for more, or look for our page and event on Facebook. That's keenvention.info.
Instead of just listening, you can also watch. See the Liberty Radio Network's Keene, New Hampshire-based live shows via our studio cam at cam.lrn.fm. Plus, you'll still be able to listen to the Liberty Radio Network via the cam feed in high quality 24/7, even when there's no live show being produced in our Keene studio. But wait, there's more. Our chat room is built into the cam page so you can interact with other listeners online. Listen, watch, and chat, all free at cam.lrn.fm. That's cam.lrn.fm.
Shiny badges on your jacket. Shiny badges.
This is Davi Barker from ShinyBadges.com, and I just want to personally apologize for airing a jingle week after week, month after month, that turned out to be such an infectious brainworm. So to make it up to you, I'm offering a free gift. The next time you make a purchase at ShinyBadges.com, write worms in the transaction comments, and I'll send you something weird.
More of the Angel Clark Show is coming up next, live after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Daryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Thursday, October 2nd, 2014. Silver is trading at $17.03 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,212 per ounce. And according to BitcoinAverage.com, the average price of Bitcoin is $383. Antiwar.com reports early Wednesday morning, Ukrainian forces shelled a school playground in the rebel capital of Donetsk, killing at least 10 people, one of whom was identified as a rebel fighter. The other 9 were all labeled civilians. The attack occurred shortly after the school day began, so none of the students themselves were at the playground at the time. However, the school's biology teacher, along with one of the students' parents, were among the slain. The Ukrainian military, as usual, inexplicably claimed that the rebels had launched the attack on a school in their own territory, while the rebels insisted that the military was targeting their fighter and that the death toll was higher, with 2 other unidentified victims among those killed. It's the second incident in Donetsk this week after 9 soldiers were killed in a clash with rebels on Monday near the airport. Despite this, the ceasefire continues to hold across much of the nation. FPP Radio News is brought to you by Coinbase. Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Opening a wallet is quick and easy, and for merchants, there are no transaction fees on the first $1 million worth of transactions. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com. ESPN reports Georgia Tech fans won't need to hit the ATM to pay for snacks and drinks at games soon, as the school reached a deal to become the first college program to use Bitcoin for concessions. The school announced the agreement on Wednesday with BitPay, which is a Bitcoin payment processing company. It will allow fans to purchase concessions in the student section of Bobby Dodd Stadium using the cryptocurrency, beginning with Saturday night's home game against Miami. Georgia Tech Athletic Director Mike Bobinski said in a statement released by the school, "We look forward to working with BitPay to make Bitcoin a viable payment option for our students and fans. At Georgia Tech, we are always looking to lead in innovative ways, and this partnership gives us an opportunity to do so by integrating this new technology at a sports venue and in the daily lives of our students." Students on campus will also be able to use Bitcoin for dining and shopping on campus. FPP Radio News is brought to you by Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. For over 35 years, Roberts & Roberts has been a trusted source for buying and selling your investment-grade precious metals. They now take Bitcoin for purchasing precious metals so you can turn your profits into a long-term investment. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on investing. 800-874-9760. Reuters reports U.S. Secret Service Director Julia Pearson resigned under fire on Wednesday after a series of security lapses came to light that exposed gaping holes in the protective cocoon around President Obama. Pearson, in her position for just 18 months, faced mounting calls from lawmakers to step down in the fallout from a September 19th incident in which an Iraq War veteran with a knife scaled the White House fence, sprinted across the lawn, and got deep inside the mansion before an off-duty agent stopped him. Pearson had told a congressional committee on Tuesday that she took full responsibility for gaps in presidential security. On Wednesday, she offered her resignation in a meeting with Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson, who accepted it. White House spokesman Josh Earnest said Obama believed Pearson's resignation was in the best interest of the agency and that recent and accumulating reports of security lapses led the president to conclude new leadership was required at the Secret Service. The development came a day after the disclosure that in a violation of protocol, an armed private security contractor with a criminal record rode on an elevator with Obama in Atlanta earlier this month and took pictures and video of the president from his phone. While all presidents have faced death threats, Obama is believed to have received more than any of his predecessors. In response to calls from lawmakers for an independent probe into the September 19th fence jumping incident, the Homeland Security Department will establish a panel of independent experts to investigate what happened and report back by December 15th. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
So, Shelby, let's start with you. You say that our bogs and marshes should actually be paved over.
That's right. Absolutely, Brooke. These things are nothing but dead body dumping pits that make life easy for murderers. And it's disgusting to me that sickos like Mr. Popkin actually want to protect these things.
All right, well, Mr. Popkin, how do you respond to this?
Bogs and marshes are important ecosystems that should be protected. I mean, they're already being endangered.
Whoa, excuse me. As long as these human landfills remain open for business, what we're essentially saying to the criminal element is, sure, do whatever you like and throw the evidence here in this federally protected black hole.
I testified before Senator Chuck Grassley, who wanted to lift federal protection on these lands, and what I told him is exactly what I'm
and
going
where
to
is
tell
Chuck
you now.
Grassley right now, sir? Could it be that he's sitting at the bottom of a bog somewhere? Why else would you be so hot on these wetlands if you aren't a murderer yourself?
This is the Onion News Network. There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek J on the Angel Clark Show.
Hello? I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl with a good, I would call her.
Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show. I'm your host, Derek J, filling in at the top of the second hour here at LRN.FM. We're talking about peaceful resistance, stories of Catalonian independence, things to watch for in Obama's new war, plus much more. We'll also take your calls. We've got a call-in line this evening. It's open. 443-424-8347. That number spells out Hi-Fi Civ Dis, and it will get you on the air. You can also send a Skype contact request to me, Derek J. Freeman, and it will be accepted. I'll put you on the air. We can share your thoughts. Get a little interactive this evening. But let's return to the story about civil unrest boiling over in Catalonia. Not rain, nor snow, nor any court will stop us, the leader of the Catalan National Assembly, Carme Forcadell, said in a Barcelona protest. On November 9th, we will vote, and we will win. The Catalan government spokesman, Francesc Holmes, indicated that nothing has ended and the government is determined to move forward. We can't give the signal that we have given up. On Saturday, the president of Catalonia, Artur Mas, has signed a decree calling an independence referendum for November. His decision came after the regional parliament in Catalonia voted 106-28 in favor of granting the president the power to hold the referendum. Speaking in a televised address after an emergency cabinet meeting Monday, Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy said he regretted Mas's decision to call for separation from Spain. Nobody and nothing will be allowed to break up Spain, the Prime Minister said. To resolve the issue, the conservative Spanish central government filed two appeals, one against the law by the Catalonian parliament allowing for the region's vote for independence, and the second one against the decree signed by the Catalonian president calling for independence. You may not have independence. You may not. Now that the suspension of the independence referendum has been approved, the court has 5 months in which to examine the matter. Catalonia is considered one of Spain's richest industrialized regions with the population of 7.5 million people. That's about 16% of Spaniards. The region has its own language, culture, and is proud of its independent-minded citizens. Back in 2006, the region formally gained nation status. However, the claim was subsequently overruled by the Constitutional Court. That story and more at LouRockwell.com. There are videos of protesters which you can watch raw video without the spin of the mainstream media. Speaking of independence, our friend Ron Paul wrote something at the Ron Paul Institute today, which I think is worth sharing. He remarks on Scottish referendum, saying the Scottish referendum gives reasons to be hopeful. Even though it ultimately failed at the ballot box, the recent campaign for Scottish independence should cheer supporters of the numerous secession movements springing up around the globe. In the weeks leading to the referendum, it appeared that the people of Scotland were poised to vote to secede from the United Kingdom. Defeating the referendum required British political elites to co-opt secession forces by promising greater self-rule for Scotland, as well as launching a massive campaign to convince the Scots that secession would plunge them into economic depression. The people of Scotland were even warned that secession would damage the international market for one of Scotland's main exports, whiskey. Considering the lengths to which opponents went to discredit secession, it's amazing that almost 45% of the Scottish people still voted in favor of it. The Scottish referendum result has done little to discourage other secessionist movements spreading across Europe, in countries ranging from Norway to Italy. Just days after the Scottish referendum, the people of Catalonia voted to hold their own referendum, measuring popular support for secession from Spain. Support for secession is also growing in America. According to a recent poll, 1 in 4 Americans would support their state seceding from the federal government. Movements and organizations advocating that state governments secede from the federal government, that local governments secede from state governments, or that local governments secede from both the federal and state governments are springing up all over the country. This year, over 1 million Californians signed a ballot access petition in support of splitting California into 6 states. While the proposal did not meet the requirements necessary to appear on the ballot, the effort to split California continues to gain support. Americans who embrace secession are acting in a grand American tradition. The Declaration of Independence was written to justify secession from Britain. Supporters of liberty should cheer the growth in support for secession, as it is the ultimate rejection of centralized government and the ideologies of Keynesianism, welfarism, and militarism. Widespread acceptance of the principle of peaceful secession and self-determination could resolve many ongoing conflicts. For instance, allowing the people of eastern Ukraine and western Ukraine to decide for themselves whether to split into 2 separate nations may be the only way to resolve their differences. The possibility that people will break away from an oppressive government is one of the most effective checks on the growth of government. It's no coincidence that the transformation of America from a limited republic to a monolithic welfare warfare state coincided with the discrediting of secession as an appropriate response to excessive government. Devolving government into smaller units promotes economic growth. The smaller the size of government, the less power it has to hobble free enterprise with taxes and regulations. Just because people do not wish to live under the same government does not mean they are unwilling or unable to engage in mutually beneficial trade. By eliminating political conflicts, secession could actually make people more interested in trading with each other. Decentralizing government power would thus promote true free trade, as opposed to managed trade controlled by bureaucrats, politicians, and special interests. Devolution of power to smaller levels of government should also make it easier for individuals to use a currency of their choice, instead of a currency favored by central bankers and politicians. The growth of support for secession should cheer all supporters of freedom, as devolving power to smaller units of government is one of the best ways to guarantee peace, prosperity, liberty, and even cheap whiskey. These are the words of Ron Paul from the Ron Paul Institute. What do you think about secession? Are you one of the 1 in 4 Americans who believes you'd be better off if your state seceded from the federal government? Maybe you are one of the individuals who, like I, signed the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com. There you can declare personal independence. Secession all the way down to the individual level, where you yourself are a country, sovereign over yourself. This is the Angel Clark Show.
A great new book is hard to find, with today's authors glorifying the state. I have an alternative, and his name is Taryn Lupo at lupolit.com. Taryn has written over 20 Liberty-themed short stories, manuals, and books, ranging from nonfiction, humor, horror, and romance to young adult and children's fiction. Read the words that reflect your views. Read Taryn Lupo at lupolit.com. A traveler? Well, check out Taryn's free audiobooks, perfect for your lifestyle. Stop supporting authors that support the state. Instead, support lupolit.com.
Energy, vitality, clarity of mind, and incredible immune support. The awesome power of nature is now in your hands. Hi, this is Sean from One with Nature. Our herbal formulas contain some of the greatest botanicals from around the world, and they are ready and willing to help you achieve your goals. Visit us at onewithnature.com. That's WON withnature.com.
Anyone can publish on the internet, but not everyone is publishing material suited for online reading. According to the Yahoo Style Guide, it cautions that internet...
And this can be purchased online. It can be purchased at gun stores. This doesn't have a serial number. It doesn't require a background check. All the person has to do to secure this jig, go to someone who has a drill press. You insert this lower receiver. Once you make the holes necessary, this is a ghost gun. We're even beginning to see an emerging industry and market for ghost guns. The threat is real. .30 caliber clip. You can go on YouTube. Also known as ghost guns. A simple piece of metal. They are being produced without serial numbers. No one knows that they exist.
If somebody is making this into this, my job is to try to stop that.
While our satellite channel is free to listen to, it's not free for us. You can help us cover our satellite costs with the chip in on the right side of the page at lrn.fm.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek J on the Angel Clark Show.
Yes, that's right. There might be police at your door. You are listening to Derek J. Learn more about me at derekj.me. We're talking about peace, freedom, secession, independence, down to the individual level. You know, it used to be that you had to beg your master for freedom or maybe declare independence and then fight a bloody war. But now, technology is empowering the individual. And it's making it impossible for governments to control you. Ghost Gunner from Cody Wilson allows home milling lower receivers for rifles for just over $1,000. Check this out. From the hit and run blog at reason.com, Cody Wilson, famous for making and popularizing the first 3D printed plastic handgun, and his group Defense Distributed, today debuted their latest provocation aimed at making gun possession easier, cheaper, and most importantly, more outside the totalizing view of the state. Wilson and his team were inspired by a proposed law that passed the California House and Senate, but which Governor Jerry Brown vetoed yesterday. The law, known as the Ghost Gun Bill, would have banned guns without serial numbers filed with the government or of any sort, as well as forcing those who do not. The law, known as the Ghost Gun Bill, would have banned guns without serial numbers filed with the government of any sort, as well as forcing those who do make homemade weapons to go through new procedures and background checks and getting Federal Department of Justice approval before doing so. Essentially, the bill would ban making a gun that the state didn't know about. The Brown's prize I can't see how adding a serial number to a homemade gun would significantly advance public safety. Exactly right, Governor Brown. To show exactly how right Brown was, and to educate any other state legislator that might contemplate following in De Leon's footsteps, Wilson and his Defense Distributed team launched a website today called ghostgunner.net. Through it, they are selling a tabletop milling machine, which can, quoting from their FAQ, manufacture any mil-spec 80% AR-15 lower receiver that already has the rear takedown well milled out. Lowers with non-milled spec trigger guards that are otherwise mil-spec are also compatible. Defense Distributed recommends using the 7075 Ares Armor Raw 80% lower AR-15 billet. That's a little too technical for me, but I imagine if you're listening and you're the type of person who mills their own machines, mills their own metal, you may be able to make one of these things. And now with this tabletop milling machine for less than $1,000, you do it pretty quick. Mass produce them from home. Wilson launched the project in response to De Leon's bill to the rhetoric developed out of California of detectability as the norm, of the observability of everything to the modern state. This guy, De Leon, defined as a ghost something not intelligible to the state. And that's a perfect way of talking about it. So this development, and it's good at finishing an 80% lower receiver for an AR-15 in under an hour. Wilson waited to see what Brown would do with the bill before publicly launching. He's convinced that had they gone live this time yesterday, the Brown's office might have been scared into signing the Ghost Gun Bill that Brown instead vetoed. Wilson has always seen his actions as a complicated dance of reactions to what his controlling opponents do. And he generally understands what they will then do in reaction to him. Wilson said, quote, "We decided we have to give them the world they are talking about, to create the problem they are talking about, to give that problem to them. Laws like De Leon's, Wilson thinks, offer a preferred regulatory landscape that's predicated on all the things that the digital manufacturing revolution has made easier by an order of magnitude, not being something as easy to get around as they actually are." Wilson just wants to remind controllers that they don't live in the world they think they live in, a world where a mere law will actually stop something they perceive as a problem. Someone possessing a tool of self-defense that's not visible and regulatable by the state. The Ghost Gunner FAQ website has further technical details on how the tabletop device works, and this comment on the current legality of using it. Under federal law, manufacturing a firearm for contemplation of future sale, FFL, a federal firearms license, is prohibited. Without a manufacturing FFL or a special government license, which almost nobody can get, you should manufacture firearms for personal use only. There are methods to legally transfer ownership of personally manufactured firearms, but they do not apply when the original manufacturing intent is to build a firearm for commercial or non-personal use. Recent ATF determinations have signaled that allowing others to use your equipment may itself constitute manufacturing. Therefore, Defense Distributed advises Ghost Gunner owners to neither print firearms for other individuals nor allow other individuals to use their Ghost Gunner to manufacture firearms. You can now pre-order the device for $1,200 now. The earlier $1,000 price has already sold out, and they promise holiday delivery. Andy Greenberg at Wired wrote about it this morning. Excerpt that nicely sums up why making a homemade lower receiver for a rifle is such a big deal. Quote, "A lower receiver is the body of the gun that connects its stock, barrel, magazine, and other parts. As such, it's also the rifle's most regulated element. Mill your own lower receiver at home, however, and you can order the rest of the parts from online gun shops, creating a semi-automatic weapon with no serial number, obtained with no background check, no waiting period, or other regulatory hurdles." Greenberg also quotes Wilson explaining why he's moved from plastic 3D weapons to metal milled ones in his latest project. We've got that quote and the end of the story, plus a video to share with you. Still to come, moms are fed up with school's stranger danger paranoia, and Obama tosses his intelligence chief, Clapper, under the bus. Why is that? This is the Angel Clark Show.
Do you need access to money? Do you need cash today? If you are receiving a structured settlement due to a lawsuit, or you are receiving pension payments over a long period of time, the Money Settlement Hotline can get you instant funding now. With your cash today, you can pay off credit card debt, pay medical bills, fund your education, or improve your home. You don't need to wait. It's true. If you're receiving a structured settlement or pension payment spread out over time and you want a lump sum amount immediately, then you need to call now. They will turn your long-term structured settlement or pension payments into a lump sum larger cash payout, so you'll get all of your money instantly. If you have a structured settlement or pension and you want cash today, call the Money Settlement Hotline right now. 888-785-0616, 888-785-0616, 888-785-0616. That's 888-785-0616.
Americans are reeling from Obamacare, higher prices, and an epidemic of policy lapses. AsiaRunLikeHellGuide.com has you covered. World-class medical and surgery at one of Asia's most modern hospitals. 300 doctors, surgeons, and dentists serving 300,000 patients a year. Fractions of U.S. prices. Friends or family forced to go out of pocket? Avoid bankruptcy. Tell them to run. Run like hell. Hit us up now. We'll show you how. AsiaRunLikeHellGuide.com.
Free Press Publications is an independent, alternative media and publishing company founded in June 2009 with the mission of ensuring a free press for the freedom movement and is committed to spreading the message of peace, freedom, love, and liberty. FPP also gives new authors an avenue for publishing freedom-oriented material. FPP brings you daily news and commentary on the website, fpp.cc, as well as a daily 5-minute newscast, FPP Radio News, and weekly news, views, and commentary in the FPP Freedom Minute and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio at fppradio.com, and the monthly newspaper, FPP News, at news.fpp.cc. Find FPP online at fpp.cc. That's fpp.cc, as in Creative Commons.
Did you know you can get news updates about what's happening with the Liberty Radio Network delivered in the way you prefer? You can sign up for our email updates at updates.lrn.fm. Plus, you can stay in the loop by joining our Facebook profile at facebook.lrn.fm or follow us at Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm. It's all free, so sign up now at updates.lrn.fm for news updates delivered to your email box, facebook.lrn.fm to follow our Facebook page, and twitter.lrn.fm to receive our tweets.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. Find out about giving to our Google AdWords campaign at amp.freetalklive.com. That's amp.freetalklive.com.
Do you love Twitter? Make sure you favorite the LRN.FM Twitter account so you can receive our tweets at twitter.lrn.fm. That's twitter.lrn.fm.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek J on the Angel Clark Show.
We're talking about ghost guns. Cody Wilson's back in the news, and he's got a 3D printer. No, it's not a printer. It's a tabletop device that mills metal, specifically AR-15 lower receivers. That means you can make your own gun. That's right. You can make your own gun without any registration with the state, without any FFL, federal firearms license, no going to gun shops, no waiting period. Just you and the machine. Well, politicians aren't going to like it, but they don't have to. They can't control you. Used to be that they could just point their guns at you, but now looks like you can make your own. Well, Andy Greenberg of Wired wrote about the new Ghost Gunner, as the device is called, earlier this morning, and he says, quote, Wilson's switch from 3D printing to milling metal makes the ubiquitous creation of usable, lethal weapons one step more practical. Wilson said, 3D printing guns was about signaling the future. This is about the present. You can use this machine today to create something to the standards you're used to. The gold standard of the gun community, is metal. The promotional video for the project, in classic Wilson style, uses only the words of Representative De Leon and an ATF agent and the music of Sadie, and features the look of an artsy horror flick to both scare the squares and help the aware to the fact that no matter what the state thinks it can do to stop you from owning guns, ingenuity and technology and indomitable will can get around their efforts. Watch the video at Reason.com, but now we turn to another article from the Hit and Run blog at Reason.com. Lenore Skenazy writes, "Moms are fed up with school's stranger danger paranoia." All over the board, across the world, we're seeing this trend toward more freedom. People are tired of tyranny. They've been given too much freedom. They've tasted the sweet nectar of independence, and they want more. They're not willing to tolerate these nanny states. Here's the article. Mention this trend to any friend with school-age kids, and most likely, they will say they've seen it. A note from the school warning parents and children that there was a car, a stranger, or worst of all, a van spotted near the bus stop. A reader, Kate, sent me a message about the note her son's school sent home with him. Kate lives in Canada, but the trend is strong in the US too. Here's her letter. Today's alert was to let us know that police were contacted regarding a suspicious motor vehicle seen between 8:15 and 8:30 a.m. near one of the schools this morning. A white work van with an orange flashing style light on top that was not operative, operated by a male, approximately 50 to 60 years of age, with a full white beard and wearing an orange construction style shirt and baseball hat. Of course, there isn't enough detail included to explain what on earth is so suspicious about a work van driven by a workman in a small Canadian town on a Wednesday morning. Instead, there are tips about setting up code words with parents and kids and never going into strange places out of public view. These notes are not benign. By adding to the belief that our kids are in constant danger the minute they leave the house, they make it seem too risky to send kids outside unsupervised. That's how we end up with cops collaring moms who let their kids walk into the park or play outside. It's equated with negligence. After all, there was an unfamiliar car in the neighborhood. Here's the rest of Katie's letter about the note. The local schools have this partnership program with the local police, where a notice is sent home with the school kids whenever police receive a complaint that touches on a threat to one of the schools or to school kids. Mostly, what this means is that we get to hear about it every single time a kid reports that someone made them uncomfortable on their walk home, and every time a local resident sees a suspicious vehicle near one of the schools. Last year, I rolled my eyes at these notices and filed them in my recycling bin. But this year, I'm fed up. I'm fed up with hearing my kids and their friends talk about how strangers could have weapons or want to grab kids. I'm fed up with trying to explain to my neighbors why there's no danger at all to my 9-year-old son to bike 1 kilometer to his school, and that it won't be any more dangerous for their daughters to walk or bike the same distance at the same age. It's hard enough to raise free-range kids in a paranoid world without the school and police adding fuel to the fire. So, I'm going to write to my kid's principal and the local police chief to ask whether it is really necessary to send reports home about every unsubstantiated complaint, considering these negative effects on the school community. if they do feel it's necessary to send these reports, I want to insist that they include follow-up reports so that the community can see how many of these complaints are unsubstantiated or substantiated. I'd like to include statistics to reinforce the true likelihood of abduction or assault so I can compare the costs of this policy against the putative benefits. Help me shed some sanity. Let's all help. Let's follow Kate's lead and ask local cops and schools to report when the suspicious man or van turns out to be absolutely nothing more than, surprise, a perfectly harmless man or van. And let's ask school principals why they feel compelled to spread fear based on nothing more than spidey sense. Well, I'm not sure what reaction that will glean. To me, it seems a better alternative to simply remove your precious children from the government schools. Fed up with the government schools reporting about their nanny statist fears and paranoia? Get out. Opt out. No. Of course, alternatives are challenging. The government makes it very easy to send your little ones to their government schools. They pick them up with their buses. They force you to pay for them, whether you use them or not. It's tempting. I get it. But how much do you value your child's education? Do you value your child's education enough to take personal responsibility? Because what that looks like is pulling your kid out of government schools, homeschooling or unschooling. Find a private school. Choose something other than the government indoctrination, anti-concentration camps. They only teach conformity and obedience to authority. No, you want independent children. You want free thinkers. So take personal responsibility today. This is the Angel Clark Show. We'll return with our last story. Why is Obama tossing his intelligence leader under the bus? This is the Angel Clark Show.
Have you been left wanting, tasting, trying to find that perfect mouth-watering e-liquid to satisfy your urges? But it seems that nothing is quite right. Tempt your taste buds and experience the truly refreshing taste of the Plume Room with e-liquids like vapor-approved banana pudding, candy Cavendish, or honey fig tobacco. There's something for everyone. With sample sizes available, you can find the taste that's right for you. The Plume Room has received 8 Spin Fuel Choice Awards and was rated a perfect score from the Vaporator. Experience the freshness of every bottle and indulge yourself in the sweet aroma of the Plume Room's artisan e-liquids. Use the code ANGELCLARK for 10% off your order and satisfy your desires today at theplumeroom.com. The Plume Room, it's time to unwind.
Keenvention is coming up October 31st through November 2nd. Get your tickets now at keenvention.info. Keenvention is your chance to meet dozens of key liberty activists from across the Shire. You can explore the beautiful little city of Keene, discuss various forms of activism with seasoned veterans, attend social events like the costume party. Keenvention received rave reviews last year. If you missed it, visit keenvention.info for full video coverage of every speaker and panel. This year, James Robin Hood Cleveland, Rich Paul, and Free State Project President Carla Garrick will be keynoting. And we'll have all kinds of panels, including the new Cop Block panel and the new Movers panel hosted by the outlaw Josie Wales. Join old and new friends and neighbors in Keene for Keenvention this October 31st through November 2nd. Only 100 tickets are available in advance, so lock yours in now for just $60 or with Bitcoin. Reserve your tickets now at keenvention.info. Visit keenvention.info for more, or look for our page and event on Facebook. That's keenvention.info.
I love My Magic Mud. I drink a lot of coffee. I had stains on my teeth. Then I found My Magic Mud, and I was told it would remove stains. So I paid attention when I brushed the first time. My Magic Mud is black tooth powder, and the difference it made in my teeth in one application was noticeable. With 4, my teeth were as white as you normal folks out there. Please go to mymagicmud.com and buy a jar. There's 150 applications for $25. You can use Bitcoin, mymagicmud.com.
Imagine someone in your community getting in their car, turning on the radio, and hearing the Liberty Radio Network. You can make that vision a reality with your own micro radio station. Visit broadcast.lrn.fm to learn how you can put our programs on the air in your area. You can have LRN.FM running around the clock, and you can even add in your own local shows. Building a radio station is simple, but programming isn't. That's where LRN.FM comes in. Learn more at broadcast.lrn.fm. That's broadcast.lrn.fm.
Andrew Michael Jones is a liberty-loving activist and participant in the Free State Project. He's also been accused of being one of the administrators of the infamous Silk Road Anonymous Black Marketplace. Andrew is facing a federal trial for multiple crimes with no victim. Whether or not he's the Silk Road administrator named Inigo, he has not been accused of harming anyone. In fact, the Silk Road is actually an amazing advancement that has reduced the overall harm of the black market to both customers and drug sellers. Whether or not he did it, Andrew, like alleged Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht, deserves the support of people who love liberty. Visit drewsdefense.org to learn more and contribute to his defense. You can donate via PayPal or in Bitcoin, as I did. That's drewsdefense.org. Drew's family does not have much, and his parents have put up their home and both retirement incomes to secure a $1 million bond on Andrew. He's currently on 24/7 house arrest and is prohibited from touching any device that could connect to the internet. Please contribute to his defense fund via drewsdefense.org.
Listen to LRN.FM on any phone, anytime. 213-493-0309. That's 213-493-0309.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek Shea on the Angel Clark Show.
Welcome back to the final segment of this episode of the Angel Clark Show, this October 2nd, 2014. We're coming to you now, sharing a story from LouRockwell.com, posted by Judge Andrew P. Napolitano. I'm a big fan, even though I think he's still a statist in some ways. He is pretty much the closest thing to an anarchist that the mainstream media can put on TV. Now he has posted an article titled Clapper Under the Bus. When President Obama attributed the rise in Iraq of the Islamic State, or ISIS, to the failures of the U.S. intelligence community earlier this week, naming and blaming directly National Intelligence Director General James Clapper, he was attempting to deflect criticism of his own incompetence. He was discussing the fact that ISIS, right under his own and the general's noses, gained control of nearly half of the landmass of Iraq. This is the same Iraq that the United States supposedly liberated from the clutches of a dictator, strengthened as a regional military power, and fortified as the Middle East's newest democracy as a result of our invasion in 2003 and our subsequent 10-year occupation. Many who supported the war then realize now that we were duped into it by a deceptive and short-sighted Bush administration that was looking to deflect blame for its intelligence failures of 9/11, for which, unlike the Japanese invasion of Pearl Harbor, not a single human being in the federal government has been charged with anything. But that's a topic for another day. ISIS captured Fallujah and Ramadi, two major cities in Iraq, 8 months ago. Surely the president knew about that when it happened. He receives an intelligence briefing every day. More often than not, he prefers a written briefing rather than one where he and his briefers can zero in on a problem and have a face-to-face conversation. Yet, since the February takeover of the Iraqi equivalent of Chicago and Los Angeles, the president has told the American people that ISIS is junior varsity, and he has no plans to address it. And he seems not to care about ISIS until ISIS went over his head, so to speak, and beheaded 2 innocent young Americans and posted grisly videos of their horrific murders on the internet. If the president now believes we should fight ISIS because it killed 2 Americans and boasted about it, he woefully misunderstands his job, which is to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, not every American everywhere on the planet. If he is convinced ISIS poses an imminent threat to the freedom of Americans and the security of our country, it is hard to believe that these 2 murders alone brought him to that conclusion. Does he genuinely believe that 25,000 ill-equipped fanatics 10,000 miles from here with no Navy or Air Force could possibly be a clear and present danger to the United States? And if he does, when and how did he come to that belief if his intelligence team failed him? These questions are of profound relevance to the American people, because with each passing day, it appears that the president is more indifferent to the facts around him and less confident at pulling the levers of government. Yet, he is sending American troops into harm's way on an ill-defined, long-term mission without congressional authorization, as the Constitution requires. Here is where his condemnation of Clapper comes in. See, Clapper is the senior intelligence officer in the federal government. All of our civilian spies, domestic and foreign, indirectly report to him. His job is to steal and keep secrets within the boundaries of the Constitution, which he, like the president, has sworn to defend. Yet, Clapper and his spies are more intent on spying on the American people than on those foreigners who have publicly boasted, however unrealistic their boasts may be, that they will cause us harm. This is, after all, the same Clapper who committed crimes in order to insulate his domestic spies from lawful congressional inquiry when he denied under oath that the U.S. government was acquiring massive amounts of private data about hundreds of millions of Americans. He made that denial to a Senate committee when he knew what his spies at the NSA were doing. When his lies became apparent, the Senate committee before which he perjured himself and whose members knew that he was lying at the moment of his lies gave him an opportunity to correct himself. But he declined to do so. For lying under oath and refusing to correct his statements, Obama should have fired him. But the president overlooked his spy master's public lies and went on television's most widely watched program this week and publicly accused Clapper of privately failing to inform the president of something the president must have known about: the ISIS advance on Iraqi population centers. This war we are now entering is unlawful because we have invaded Syria without a congressional declaration of war and without a legal or moral basis for doing so. It is morally wrong because ISIS is an imminent threat to the U.S. only in the minds of members of Congress who love war, not in reality. And it is blind to recent history because it will become a more superior recruitment tool for ISIS than our original invasion of Iraq was for Al-Qaeda. The only reason Al-Qaeda and ISIS exist in Iraq is as resistance to the American invasion and occupation, an invasion that has materially detracted from the liberty and safety of the U.S. and the stability of the region. Yet, If Clapper and his spies so miserably failed to educate the president about a threat he now claims is real, why do they still have their jobs? They have their jobs because if the president fires them, they might freely speak the truth. And the truth is the president's enemy. They have their jobs because the president is so bad at performing his. That article by Judge Andrew Napolitano. Look for him on Fox News. And at his website, which is let's see. I'm not sure what his website is. But if you just search Andrew Napolitano, you'll find brilliant articles and speeches given on his news program, which I think he was tossed off for speaking too much truth to power. Just remarkable. Now, for our final segment on peaceful resistance, we turn to freekeen.com, where Ian Freeman writes today, even teens can take speeding tickets to court. Have you ever taken a speeding ticket to court? Well, 17-year-old Renee LeBlanc proved it in this trial from Jaffrey District Court. Don't miss the hypocrisy by police prosecutor Vince Bogus, who rudely refuses to meet with Renee on the record at the August pre-trial conference, but when called on it by her later in the courtroom, acts like recording his meeting was no big deal. Court can be an intimidating, nerve-wracking experience. Getting your feet wet on something simple like a speeding ticket or parking ticket is a great way to gain experience and confidence. Sure, you're probably going to lose, but there's always the chance the officer won't show up. Plus, in New Hampshire, not taking the plea and demanding your trial, at the very minimum, guarantees you won't have to pay for a few extra months while you wait for your trial date. It also makes them have to work for their money. And when found guilty, you may be able to have the charge placed on file or negotiate community service rather than paying the fine, though Renee was unsuccessful this time. This has been the Angel Clark Show. I'm your host, Derek J. Learn more about me at derekj.me. And in the meantime, catch more of Angel Clark's show at radiofreedom.us and her website, noarmycanstopanidea.com.